Hello everyone, let's talk about this question. It's called Prefix Max. This is part of Codeforces round 1074 in Division 4. I believe this was the second question. In this question, we have to find the maximum value for each of the prefix of the arrays and find an overall maximum value itself. We're said that we can swap two indices at most one time in this whole question. And our job is to find the maximum possible value of the array A at most with at most one operation. We're given three inputs: integer t, which is the number of test cases. The first line of each test case is the string integer n, which is the length of the array. In this case, this is 5. And the second line contains all of the integers, as we can see here. Just as an example of what we have to do here, let's look at the following example. Let's say we're given the array 1, 2, 1. We're calculating the maximum of the first number, which is max of 1, which is 1, plus max of 1 and 2, which is the first and the second element, that would be 2, and then maximum of 1, 2, and 1, which is the whole array, which is also 2. We can see that the summation here is 5. Now, if we change the position of 2 from the second position in the array to the first position in the array, we get this array, which is 2, 1, 1. In this case, our maximum calculation will look something like this. We'll look for maximum of 2, which is 2, maximum of 2 and 1, which is the first and second element, which is also 2, and then maximum of 2, 1 and 1, which is also 2. In this case, our value becomes 6, which is better than 5. In some of the other examples that we have from Codeforces, we can see this array 2, 1, 4, 5, 3, and we can see the answer is expected to be 25. For 5 and 1, answer is 10. 3, 2, 1, the answer is 9, and for 6, 7, the answer is 14. You would have noticed something in each of these examples. We can see that in all of these examples, we're essentially taking the highest valued number. For the first example, this is 5. For the second, it's 5 as well. For the third, it's 3, and for the fourth one, it's 7. And then we're just multiplying it by the number of elements in the array. That is how we're getting our answer. And that makes complete sense as well, because let's say with this array, if we change the array, if we swap the number 2 and 5 here, our array becomes 2, 1, 4, 2, 3. And when you spread it out like that, we can see that for each of these max operations that we're doing, the maximum number will be the maximum of the array, which is going to be 5. And since this operation or this prefix is happening 5 times, we're simply multiplying that number by, or the maximum number, by the number of elements, which is also 5. And that's how we get our answer, which is 25. We can do those same things for these questions as well, but now let's jump into the code. I will start off with my template here, and we will input t, which is the number of test cases, and we will input each of the arrays, quote unquote, that we're inputting. Now, when I was solving this question, one obvious way to solve this is definitely using an array, but that increases the space complexity to O of n. There is an O of 1 space complexity solution as well with the same time complexity, so I think I'll be using that. For each of the test cases, we're inputting n, which is the number or the length of the array. This is going to be important. However, we will be using the value of n throughout the question, so since we don't want the value to be something we don't expect it to be, we will have an original n integer, which is just going to be n, and we're not going to change this original n. This is going to help us essentially multiply at the end of our solution. Now we will input all of the values, but before doing that, we will initialize a max value variable, which will be actually, rather than doing int in this case, I think we should use long for all of these numbers just to be safe. And our max value before we do anything will be L long min, which is the minimum value a long data type can have. Once we've initialized all of this, now we can start comparing all of the values. So while, or rather inputting the values so we can compare it with them, while n minus minus, we're taking in values for the quote-unquote array, which is, I'm just going to define it by x. Once we've done that, now we have to figure out what our maximum value is, which is why we're going to be using the max function here between max value that we already have and the x that we just inputted. Now once we have done all of that, the only thing that's left to do is output the answer, which will be the maximum of our value multiplied by the original n that we had, since we are multiplying the maximum value of the array by the length of the array. This is the solution of the question, and this should work. This is an O of n time complexity question, and we're not using extra space. Two things that we have to do is include C limits and algorithms. C limits because we're using L long min, and algorithm for the max function here. That is it for this question. If you find a better, more optimized way to solve this, please let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.